My journey took a major turning point when I heard a radio contest. They wanted to see who could sit on the giant Ferris wheel. I ended up riding the Ferris wheel for 10 days. I won the contest and that changed my life. I got fired from my job and then I hitchhiked a ride to Utah. Even though a decision may seem stupid or flippant at the time, we never know which one of those decisions can completely change and alter the course of our lives. Where would I be today had I not got on the Ferris wheel and sat there mindlessly for 10 days?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Rewire Your Life podcast. This is Dr. Alok Trivedi. I just want to thank you guys for joining me here on an amazing day. And I've got a super guest today. He's known as the Iron Cowboy. Let's give it up for James Lawrence. James, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alok.
You have done so much in your world. Like you've broken Guinness Book World Records. You've completed 50 Ironmans in 50 states. You have programs to help people conquer their fears and help train for Ironmans inside that. Like, how did you get into the world of Ironman? Let's start at that journey.
Well, like any journey, I believe we start at the beginning. Nobody starts out the expert. And I think that's one of the flaws of social media. And there's a lot of great things, but one of the flaws is we're looking at everybody's best moments or years down the road of their journey. And we compare and then we're scared to start. And so my journey started like off the couch, simple 5K run with my wife. And then just like dip my toe in the water of sprint distance triathlon. The community was amazing, loved it. And then just slowly started to build over the last 15 years.
And so how old were you when you actually started?
I was in my mid to late 20s when I started. Did our first world record, mid 30s, and then 50 Ironmans, 50 days, 50 states at 39. And then 45, just recently, we did 100 consecutive Ironmans here in Utah.
That's wild, man. That's wild. What do you love about the Ironman process?
I mean, I hate it because it's grueling, man. But I love the variety. Like, I'm not just a runner. I'm not just a cyclist. I'm not just a swimmer. I don't just do strength training. And so I think it's like a really well-rounded base of training. And so I like the variety. I like doing all those different things. I love the community of it. I love the people. It's just a lot of fun to get out and then push yourself and compete. And as you get older, in high school and college and stuff, you've got an outlet. And as you grow older, as a competitive athlete, you want something. And triathlon just was there and just really gravitated towards it.
I love that. So when you do the triathlons, let's go through one of the most grueling experiences you've actually had as a triathlete.
Oh man. It's different doing a single day all out race where you're pinned and you're doing that. And then when you do big challenges like we do, where we do consecutive full distance. So probably the most challenging thing happened to me when we were doing 100 consecutive. So just real quick, a full distance triathlon and Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, followed by a full marathon run, 26.2 miles. So that's a total of 140.6 miles. So we were 59 days into consecutive Ironmans.
Like every single day?
Yeah, every single day, no days off. And I was in an accident and was struck on my bike. And, in this challenge, I had 41 more to go. And so that's like kind of a moment where you need to make a decision on what you're doing, why you're doing it, pros, cons. And then we found out afterwards that I had broken my L5 vertebrae in that crash. And so that was kind of a super challenging moment decision in my racing career.
So what'd you end up doing?
I got on my bike and kept going.
And so when you're going through that pain, like your L5 that's not, for those of you who don't know, that's not a small fracture. Like that's your lower vertebra. That's a foundation of it all. Like as a former chiropractor, I know that vertebrae very well. And, that break can paralyze you potentially.
Yeah, it was interesting too, because we didn't know until afterwards. Because when you're doing, it's chaos when you're doing 140 miles a day for a quarter of a year.
Yeah.
And we just associated that back pain with, day 60, 70, 80, 90 consecutive. And, you stiffen up and you're in your bike and you swim 2.4 miles a day. And so we just associated that pain. And then once you come after it and you're in the recovery process and you're just like, okay, everything seems to be healing except for this. Yeah. And then we, took a deeper dive into it and went and got all the x-rays and the MRIs and everything and realized, okay, that's what happened.
Super insane. Like that's a lot to go through inside of it. Why do it? Like this is. I mean, everyone has. I get it. Like you love it, but why go through that? 40 days in, go through the accident. What's on the other side? Everyone knows what's their why, and you've all heard this. So what was yours at that time?
Yeah, it was interesting. A big part of who we are in our team is we finish what we start. And our word is our bond. And obviously we got to take in health considerations and safety protocols and all those things. Sure. And we never felt that we were in complete danger. And so, as a team, we say we're going to do something, we follow through and do it. And then we always attach a higher cause to what we're doing. And we partnered with Operation Underground Railroad, and they have a mission to eradicate human and sex slavery. And, we did the majority of our fundraising after the crash, days 60 through 100, and we ended up raising $500,000 to put on these sting operations to get the bad guys. And you always sit down and say, man, what the impact that we have is so great. We would have never had that impact had we decided to pack it in on day 59 when it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. So how do you do this as a family man? I know you got kids, right? How many kids you got?
I got 5 kids.
5 kids, a wife. How do you train? And are they involved in your training process? Do they do the Ironman thing, or are they like they want nothing to do with that?
No, I got 4 teenage girls. They want to be doing teenage girl things for sure. But it's interesting, when they were little, kids are products of their environments. And so when we were little or they were little, it was just what we did as a family. They would come to the races. They loved it, the atmosphere, the cheering. Dad's doing this. I'd involve them in the training, stuff like that. But now that they're older, they've got their own lives and friends and circles and jobs and college and all these things. And so they're busy doing all of that. And it's interesting because, you hear the word family life, hobby balance, right? And, people think, okay, I got to do 30% here and 30% here. Well, it never chalks up that way. And certain times on your journey requires certain sacrifices and time commitments. And we communicate those with our family and what we're doing. But the reality is my teenage girls don't want 30% of my time. They want quality time when I'm with them, and they want all of my attention. And so, it's like anything. Life becomes about time management and how well you can do it. And if you want to achieve something at a certain or high level, you got to look at everything you're doing and go, okay, what am I willing to sacrifice in order to achieve X? And then you have that conversation, you have the checks and balances, and then you make a decision.
So I love that. I love everything you're saying with that. So how do you translate this? Because you speak to corporations and companies, sales teams, CEOs. How do you translate training an Ironman to a corporation? Let's take this into a business context and a business conversation.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting. I talk to, every type of company around the world. I've spoken to 50 countries. I speak to the NFL and I speak to accountants in Sri Lanka. And what's interesting is we're dealing with the human mind and the human spirit and the human heart. And one of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Mine too. Great
book. That book in its core is about hope.
Sure.
Right. And everybody's struggling in this life. And I believe that hope is life. And our team's willingness to do these challenges and continue to show up gives people hope on their journey where they maybe aren't intentionally suffering like we do. And so my job is the coolest on the planet. I get to do 2 things. I get to give every audience member hope on their journey, and I get to remove any excuses that they may have. And I believe that's a recipe for success. If you can remove excuses and insert hope, you've got a chance. And that's what our story, our message is all about. It's about hope. It's about not losing that hope. And it's about not giving all of your focus and attention onto the excuses, the negativity and all that stuff. And that we get to choose the path we go on and how we interact and perceive and interact with that journey that we're on.
I love that. So When you go to speak, like, what's your favorite group to speak to? Is there a favorite group you have?
It's not necessarily a favorite group of people. I love an engaged audience.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of fun to go speak to at an event where the people don't really want to be there. It's required, and they're just like, oh, another speaker. We got to
Right,
suffer
exactly.
through this, and they just want to get to the bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then there's events where they've paid to be there. They're engaged. They're eager to learn. They want change in their lives. And that's a lot of fun because now I'm feeding off their energy and I don't have to provide all of it, right? But those events where it's just like a dead silent room, I eventually get them because our stories are mind blow.
Sure.
But it's a lot more fun when you have people that want to be there, want to engage, want to learn, and that energy is just infectious. So it's really, really cool.
Give me a story that's so cool that that you share with the audience. It's just powerful.
Yeah, I don't know how powerful it is, but I always start my presentations with this. I'm from Calgary, and Calgary is world famous for the Calgary Stampede, one of the largest
Stampede.
rodeos in the world. It's 10 days long. The city shuts down. It's a huge party. Well, my journey took a major turning point when I made a decision. I heard a radio contest they wanted to see who could sit on the giant Ferris wheel for the entire 10-day duration of the Stampede. And I was like, I can do that. I mean, I'm tough. I grew up as a wrestler. And so I got my spot on the ride. And I ended up riding the Ferris wheel for 10 days. And I won the contest. And that changed my life because I got fired from my job. And then I hitchhiked a ride to Utah where I started my life and I never went home.
Yeah.
And a couple really big lessons from that is one, I learned in that moment how powerful my mind is and that we can control our environment because those other individuals, they chose to quit. They chose to exit the challenge. And I chose to remain in the challenge and ultimately won. And then I also really learned at a high level that like, even though a decision may seem stupid or flippant at the time, we never know which one of those decisions can completely change and alter the course of our lives.
Yeah.
Where would I be today had I not got on the Ferris wheel and sat there mindlessly for 10 days, right?
So true.
In that moment, as a parent or whatnot, you could look at your son and go, what are you doing with your life? You're sitting on a Ferris wheel. You got fired from your job. Well, that was a major pivot point in my life.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know where I would be, what I'd be doing. Would I still be in Canada? Am I working on the oil rigs? Am I addicted to cocaine? Like, what am I doing at this point? Right. And so that I look back and I'm grateful for that flippant decision I made to sit on a Ferris wheel for 10 days.
We're a destiny of our decisions. There's no question. There's no question. Let me ask you this. Do you think kids could do it today? I mean, if they have their cell phone, as soon as the battery pack is out, they're done. They're getting off that ride.
Well, one of the rules was no phones, no books. Like their objective was complete boredom. And so there's a huge demographic today. I mean, we live in a time and era generation of shiny light, next distraction. What's the most exciting 2 minutes? What's the next exciting 15 seconds, right? So yeah, do I think that's a challenge that's very viable today? I think it's even heightened today because we're so addicted to this guy right here and the, entertain me, right? And I'm not okay sitting with my thoughts and by myself. I think that's why, even back then, why a lot of people exited the ride is because you're there just with your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's a conversation with you. Yeah. And most people, if I can say this, aren't comfortable with the conversation they get to have with themselves. They either are filled with regret or displeasure or whatever it is. They don't like who they are, the decisions that they've made. They've forgotten to forgive themselves for the not being perfect, which no human is, right? And so they're not okay with the conversations that they're having with themselves, and they need that distraction. They need that shiny light to go off. And so, I think it would be really challenging for a lot of people. Don't allow a person to be on their phone for 10 days. I'll tell you this though, a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to be on the world's toughest race, which is an Amazon Prime show, Map and Compass, navigation, 67 teams from 30 countries around the world, teams of 4. We went into the back jungle of Fiji, and before the race starts, you have to turn in your technology because it is Map and Compass. And we were in the back jungle for 8 or 9 days, no contact with the real world. I'm talking no media, no radio, no TV, no Netflix, no phone, nothing, no Instagram.
Yeah.
And I know it was one of the coolest experiences to unplug and do it. And I think, man, I wish there was a way to like mandate everybody's got to unplug for a week. You know what I mean?
Probably a great
And not
idea.
everybody at the same time, but like, hey, let's just like, your phone doesn't work for the next week, figure it out, right? And just see what happens, what conversations you have with yourself, because we're so dependent on that. And I think it's just a huge blessing. And obviously that's extreme, but I think people should learn to like, hey, I'm going to go up in the mountains and I'm just going to leave, I'm going to go on a bike ride. I'm going to go take a hike and I'm not going to take my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to, I've got my smartwatch that if I need to, I can make a phone call and I'm safe, whatever. But I mean, we didn't have that back in the day. So it's not like it's super unsafe. Just go know where you are and be smart about it. But I think every day someone should like unplug and just say, you know what? I'm going to check out for a minute.
I love that. I love that idea. I think it's super valuable inside to heal the mind and the thought processes that go on as well.
Yeah.
You and I had a great conversation before actually this podcast as well, where it is a Rewire Your Life podcast, and we talked about how you've trained your mind to think in a certain way. And I remember you telling me you were taught this early on in your life by your mother, if I believe correctly, right? Your mom was teaching you different tools and how to think. Can you share some of these ideas and constructs that you went through that help people as we talk about rewiring and as we come towards the end of this?
Yeah. I mean, again, kids are products of their environments, and my mother was years ahead of her time, and maybe more people were doing it, but social media didn't exist, so we didn't know. But she was big on mind body connection, and if there's an ailment, it's connected to an emotion and all these things. And so it was just how I was brought up, and talking about emotions and dealing. A physical thing comes up and it's attached to this, and until you release that and replace it with positivity and generational things. I mean, there's so much that we can go into, but to be honest with you, it's a huge secret to my success. Like, people get injured because of an emotional connection or a trigger or things like that happens to them, and it just manifests in their body. And if you don't deal with that emotion or trigger, I mean, it's why 99.9% of everybody on The Biggest Loser gains all the way back. Because It's not just a physical problem; it's an emotional.
Game.
That's why, later in the years before it went off the air, they started to get into that, where it was just, okay, this isn't just a physical problem. There's emotions and stuff tied to it, and I think it's becoming more and more mainstream. And I'm super grateful for my mother and my grandmother for living that way, for educating us, teaching us, having the courage to not be mainstream with what she was doing. And this belief or patterning concept and replacing emotions and generational beliefs. I mean, something that happened to my grandmother or my grandfather that's passed on generationally that I just pick up, that I need to clear out. And, so we really work hard with our kids now and trying to deal with emotions and situational things and communicating with them. And it's been so valuable because just working with our kids on that level, we can see differences in, and I'm not saying our kids are perfect and whatnot, but we can draw very specific parallels to like success our kids are having to the emotional and therapy and work that we've done with them.
I would bet. I see the same thing with my own children as well. So I definitely can attest to that as well. I mean, how do you prepare mentally? Let's just talk about this just in your preparation, because I'd love for people to take this and say, you know what, maybe I'm not an Ironman guy, but how does an Ironman prepare mentally with all these processes we're talking about? How does someone take it on their day-to-day life and running their life of an Ironman?
Yeah, I think, it's a great question, and it's about showing up, and it's about sticking with something. It's the number one question I get. How do I become more mentally tough?
Sure.
In all aspects of my life? And you're not going to listen to you and I have a conversation and become more mentally tough. You're not going to read whatever XYZ book and become more mentally tough. It's only when you make a decision and have an experience that you can draw upon that and build upon it. I didn't wake up one day having no experience and go, you know what? I'm going to do 100 consecutive full distance Ironmans. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 14,000 consecutive miles, no days off, a quarter of a year. You don't wake up and do that. Anybody who's trying to do that now fails. Guys have tried it, even in recent history. 3 weeks ago, a guy just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to break your world record, 102. Let's go. Dude made it 7. Stop it. Like, you have to have experience in order to do this. My journey started with a 4-mile fun run off the couch that I suffered through.
Yeah.
I'm not genetically gifted, but over the course of a decade and doing intentional things to make myself uncomfortable, I build up that mental toughness, that callus in order to have that experience. So when I am backed into a corner, I have the knowledge that next step's not going to kill me. Time versus movement. Time's going to keep going. And if I keep moving, eventually I'm going to get there. And people don't understand that when discomfort slaps them in the face, they're like, oh, I'm out. That's no longer fun. And all they're doing is crippling themselves for future things that they can plan for or not plan for that's coming in life. You take a look around in 2019, 20, when the pandemic rocked the world, take a look around. How many people handled it well? How many people didn't handle it well? I guarantee you can take a look at the life experience of the people that handled it well and didn't handle it well. They've intentionally have done hard things to get to that moment, because when life happens, they handled it very differently than someone who's been very comfortable or avoided confrontation or avoided these things. It was very, very obvious who had done things in their lives that were challenging and continued to show up in their lives. It resonated really well.
I agree with you 100%. I always said, if you can't deal with adversity, it's because you haven't dealt with challenges in the past. That's really
absolutely. You're constantly looking for the path of least resistance.
That's right. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Iron Cowboy. How do people get in touch with you? How do people connect with you? How do they learn more about what you do, your books, your programs? If people want to learn how to run an Ironman, you coach people with Ironman. How do people get in touch with everything you're doing now? It's such a great work.
Yeah, thank you, man. The two best places is obviously our website, ironcowboy.com. And I'm most active on Instagram, which is Iron Cowboy James. I answer all my own DMs. Like you said, we coach athletes. We've got a fitness app. If you don't want to be a triathlete, you just want to get back into fitness, get your health and wellness back in order. And then all the way up to where we do weekend retreats and mindset challenges. And I think that's the most important thing in life. You have to have experiences. And so that's what we do is we help people get out of their own way and give them hope. And so if you want to follow us, Instagram, Iron Cowboy James, on our websites, ironcowboy.com.
Love it. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Iron Cowboy. This is another episode of Rewire Your Life. I'm Dr. Alok Trivedi, a.k.a. Dr. Rewire. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Hey guys, if you like that video, click on the link over here and you're going to love the next video.